I'm Carrie, and this is Student Loan Chit-Chat. Today is Saturday, July 1st. So days away from my birthday on July 4th. All right. I think we all knew that the student loan forgiveness was not going to pass. I had said it many times on this channel over the past few months. Don't get your hopes up on it. I just didn't feel that the climate was such that it was going to pass. I just didn't think it was, and it was kind of like a Hail Mary prayer to have it pass. So I know there are a lot of disappointed people out there today, and unfortunately there are so many different discussion directions to take this in, especially excuse me, especially now that we know where things stand. I could do an hour-long video, 2 hours long, and I don't want to make a video that long, okay? And the fact that that's just, well, there's just a lot to unpack, and there's a lot to discuss about moving forward. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to put out a series of shorter videos and try to upload more frequently. So I'm going to put up a video obviously today, and then another one tomorrow, and I will try to upload more frequently, especially during the summer when I have free time. Okay, so let's talk about, for today's topic, I'm going to talk about my conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist as I get ready to talk about it, but I do have a little bit of a conspiracy theory out there. I could be totally wrong. That's the one thing I want to address in today's video. And then the other thing I want to address in today's video is the interest that the big banks had. Not just big banks, but yeah, for all intents, student loan banks, okay, student loan companies like Sallie Mae and stuff, all right? And it really doesn't even matter if it deals with private or federal student loans. Of course, this all dealt with federal student loans, but the interest that the lending banks have is applicable to federal and private. So those are basically the two things I want to talk about today, all right? So basically my conspiracy theory idea, and basically the interest that the big banks had, and other lending institutions, banks of course, okay, had in really not wanting this to pass. But before I go into that, I'm going to remind you over and over again, okay? A lot of people out there, I know are very upset over this. I talked to one friend of mine in another state. She's not happy, and she's in what I would call a good place, okay? Her debt is like in the teens, all right? So she's in a good place. Not all student loan borrowers are in such a great place, but one of the things she asked me basically was why I have so much interest in this. She goes like, why would you be interested in this, Carrie, when you don't have student loan debt anymore? So let me address that. It's because I've been there. I was there for 16 years, from the ages of 38 to 55 respectively. Okay, I'm getting ready to turn 56. So from the age of basically 38 when I started my teaching job until August 2022 at the age of 55, I was in student loan debt. And I just watched my debt get higher and higher, and I paid, had a couple of very short, couple year forbearances on it and stuff. But by the time, my student loan was done, all right, it started at $85,000 when I was done with my 2 masters. It completed at $110,000, which was forgiven August 2022 through the student loan PSLF. And it was only forgiven because there was a temporary waiver that they put in for a year that allowed us to, so to speak, I guess, change some rules, break some rules, okay? Because there was so much red tape to get through it that it took me 16 years of teaching. Actually, I'm going to back up. It took me 13 years of teaching because it was on forbearance for like 3 years, so I'm not going to count that, all right? But basically, it took me more than 10 years of teaching to meet the 10-year PSLF requirement because there was so much red tape. I understand. I get it. I know the financial frustration. I understand sort of that sinking feeling of it's not going to matter how much I put towards this. Had I still had student loan debt, Biden's $10,000 debt would have done nothing for me. In fact, I was telling her I would just assume that you not even put the $10,000 towards the student loan, give it to me, and trust me, I could find something more productive to do with that $10,000. There's also the understanding that I would have retired with this debt. We have people who are going to retire with student loan debt. I have talked to people who I know are going to retire with student loan debt. Okay? It's going to just simply happen. And understanding that I would have been in that camp, I would have retired with student loan debt. I was not willing to forego my entire retirement plan so I could give it all to the student loan companies. And so then I could retire with no student loan, but I would have no cash retirement. You see? We can sit and we can argue all day about fault, blame. You know, you're at fault, who's at fault, society's at fault, GOP, Democrat, but we are past that now. It's kind of like the baby is here, and we can't argue anymore about protection. The child is here, so now we got to deal with it. Well, guess what, folks? The child is here. It has come back home to roost. That is the student loan debt. All right? So I don't want to turn this into an argument of, you know, Democrat, Republicans, and who's at fault, yada, yada, okay? But instead, I want to look at why I think the things happening. Yes, initially, it's going to take a little, you know, little discussion of politics, okay? But in all honesty, I really, really want this to be a channel where those of you who are in student loan debt moving forward, okay, I want to help guide you through my mistakes. All right? So, here we go. My conspiracy theory about why this all occurred. In fact, somebody wrote me yesterday when this all came down with the Supreme Court of the United States, SCOTUS, okay, and said, she asked, I'm assuming it's a she, if I'm wrong, please forgive me. Sometimes I can't always tell by your handles and I forgot your handle, okay? So the person who wrote me asked, you know, why did they do this to us? It is such a mess. And yeah, absolutely right. It is a mess. But I'm going to tell you what I think happened, my conspiracy theory part, all right? If we go back and we look at the Affordable Care Act, with also known as Obamacare, okay? But we're just going to call it the Affordable Care Act because that's what it's actually called. If we look at the Affordable Care Act, even when that was in place, there was a lot of legal wrangling in the courts about whether or not it was legal, not legal. But even while all that legal wrangling was being done, people were signing up for the Affordable Care Act. It got to the point where so many millions of people had signed up that people were able to make an argument and say, look, all of these people have signed up for the Affordable Care Act. There is no way you can take it from them at this point. It's kind of like trying to take away Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare. We literally have millions and millions and tens of millions of people on it. To try and dissolve those types of programs now would be near impossible, especially without a political repercussion. This, in my opinion, is where my conspiracy theory is. Why did, and we're just going to say Biden, okay, because that's the party in charge right now, okay? Why did Biden, and of course we know it's not he alone, all right, but he is the president. Why did Biden roll out a forgiveness program, that being the 10,000 and 20,000? Why did Biden roll out a forgiveness program and tell people, hey, you're all getting, you know, loan forgiveness, 20,000 for Pell Grants, 10,000 for the rest of you on federal loans, and we're all good. Here's the application site. And for those of you that had paid your debt off during the pandemic, hey, we're rolling out, you know, up to $10,000 checks for you, which is why some people receive checks. Why did they go through all that? And why did they not clear it with the courts first? In other words, why get everybody all excited, hopeful, you know? You're lifting people's spirits because they're thinking, oh, finally, you know, this $20,000 debt can be dropped to, say, $10,000, or if you've got $7,000 in debt, you can have it cleared. In other words, why did Biden and his team not clear it first through the courts? Well, here's my conspiracy theory. I think much like the Affordable Care Act, there was a hope that if we just push out this program, again, I could be totally wrong, okay? I'm no expert here, all right? But if we just push out this program and we get millions of people to rely on it, and we are in the millions here, folks. We're not in a few hundred thousands, tens of thousands, we're in the millions. We get millions of people to sign up, flood the websites, start receiving those refund checks. If we get millions of people on board, there is a slight chance that just the complexity of trying to unravel all of that, there is maybe a slight chance that we can push this through. Yeah, we're aware that there are legal challenges to it. Yeah, we understand that it's a very divisive issue, ideology, political party, all of that stuff. But if we just push it on through, we can say, look it, we've given out, thousands of checks, of refund checks. We've got millions of people signed up. They're ready to, have their student loan forgiven. I think there was a hope that pushing it out like that would help it to pass, whether it be from a Supreme Court level, okay, or not. But it backfired. It didn't work. Now, that's another video for another day as to, all the repercussions of it backfiring. That is my personal conspiracy theory, because the person who wrote me on this about why did they do this to us? This is such a mess. Yeah, it's spaghetti for some people. This is like a whole plate of spaghetti just falling down from the ceiling and landing on one's plate in a big old plot. You thought everything was boarded up. You thought the ceiling was strong, and then you realized it wasn't. My hope is that those of you, not all of you, remember, okay, those of you who did receive refund checks, I did a video months back, and I said, do not spend that refund check. Because for those of you that paid off your loan, you had a qualifying application to apply for a refund, and they wrote you that check up to $10,000, okay, all of a sudden you realize, well, and I think I said in my video, that check may not be any, it may be worth less than the paper was written on, okay? I hate to say I was right, but I was right, okay, for all intents and purposes. That check needs to go back to the government, or shredded or ripped up or something. Make sure you take a photocopy of it, shred it up, send it back, parcel post first day or whatever. I believe that is why it wasn't done the other way. Because this could have easily gone through the courts first. It could have easily, hey, we got to debate this whole thing. We're not promising anybody anything. But just the mere side of setting, just the mere motion, the mere activity of setting up a website for people to start applying. And I mean, you had people who were like, they're applying within hours. I know when the public service loan forgiveness waiver came out for teachers and other public employees, I literally was on that site the next day. Like, I think they had it up at midnight. I was on it by 7 a.m. False promises. There were political repercussions to it, yeah, and the knife cuts both ways. All right, so that portion of the topic is for another day. So that's why I think it wasn't put out in a more responsible way of, hey, you know what, let's wait and see what the courts say, and depending upon what the courts say, that will determine whether or not we set up, websites, send out refunds and all of that. Okay, so with that part off, let's talk about the second part, and this is dealing with the big banks. And I talked about this with one of my gal pals today, and this is something I feel very, very strongly about, all right? The big banks, the student loan lenders, let's just refer to them as the student loan lenders. The student loan lenders have a whole lot, or had, not have, they had, HAD, they had a whole lot to lose financially. Had this measure passed, not the measure, but had this forgiveness passed, okay? Let's think about it. Much like credit cards. Let's think about credit cards. How do credit cards make money? Do they make money by the person who pays off their bill every day? They borrow from the credit card, then they pay off their bill every month, okay? No. Do they make money from the person who gets 0% interest? They might pay a little 4 or 5% fee up front, but then, for the next year, 2 years, they get 0%. They really making any money? No. How do credit cards make money? Late fees, over the limit fees, can't pay my bills, so I need to reorganize, consolidate fees, which creates more fees for the consolidation. In other words, debt that cannot be paid off. That is the most lucrative way that I'm aware of. Now, I could be wrong, all right, but this is my, nearly 56 years of experience, okay? Debt is the way credit card issuers make money. A person who pays off their bill every month isn't going to make them a whole lot of money. So let's go ahead and transfer this to student loans. Had the student loan forgiveness gone through, billions, not millions, billions would have been paid off. Billions. Who's going to give the student loan lenders their profit once you have cleared the debt? Who's going to do that? Yeah, they're going to have new students, sure, but they're not always just looking in the future. They got to keep a certain crew with them that's been rowing their financial boat all these years. Letting you go is not that easy. It's not in their best interest to have people pay off their student loan. It's much better for them to be as, what was it, in my case, how I was so naive. Truly, I did not understand that student loans are nothing more than credit card bills. It's nothing more than a credit card bill with a student loan in front of it that you can't file bankrupt on. Credit card debt is better. If I had to choose between $110,000 in credit card bills, okay, or $100,000 in student loan, give me the credit card bills any day. All right? Not saying bankruptcy is easy, not saying it's good, all right? But the bottom line is, I can start clean. I can go, yo, time out, start clean. You can't do that with the student loan. And this is where a lot of people, I know this is going to be the case, there are going to be people out there that are very depressed, okay? The bottom line is, student loans, there is an interest in your lending institution and making sure you cannot and you do not pay off that bill. This is why partly with the PSLF, the Public Service Loan Forgiveness Waiver, part of the reason people like me got, I guess, accepted by the waiver is one of the things the student loan companies did not do, and I had Fed Loan at the time, which is now Mohela, M-O-H-E-L-A. Fed Loan is now Mohela, okay? When I went on forbearance, Fed Loan failed to tell me that I could have gone on income-based. That was huge, because when I went into forbearance, what it did was it stopped the clock. It stopped my 120 payment or 10-year clock. I needed 10 years of payment as well as being in a public service job. So in my case, teacher. I needed 10 years of being a teacher and making a payment on my student loan. They had to both occur in the same month. A payment on my student loan and holding a teaching job, and I had to hold it for 10 years. When I called Fed Loan and I said, hey, you know what, life's getting a little, rocky boat right this moment, it's getting a little rough, I need to find a way to lower my monthly bills. The only thing I was aware of was forbearance. That's all I knew. And they were more than happy to put me on it. And I was on it for 2.5, 3 years most, okay? What they failed to tell me was, hey, Carrie, if you go on forbearance, that is going to stop your 10-year clock. If you take forbearance for 2 years, instead of you getting PSLF in 10 years, it's going to take you 12 years. They never told me that. Why not? Because it wasn't in their financial interest to tell me that. Because had they told me that, they would then have had to tell me, oh, and by the way, we can lower you down to income-based. So we can take your higher bill and we can get you at income-based and you'll be all good. Because I would have done it in 2 seconds. I said, heck, cut my bill basically in half, put me on income-based. I can still keep my teaching job, still making my student loan payments, and I don't stop that 10-year PSLF clock. They didn't do that because it wasn't in their financial interest. It is not in student loan lenders' financial interest to have anybody help you get out of debt. I don't care if it's mom, dad, grandma, aunt, uncle. It is not in their financial interest for you to be able to cut a check and say, there you go, my bill is paid, bye-bye from the rest of my life. That's not in their interest. Had the student loan forgiveness, sorry, my phone's going off. Had the student loan forgiveness passed, had that measure, I keep calling it a measure, had that passed, those banks would have been out billions and billions of dollars. And that's what you have to remember. When you take out a student loan, you really have to look at the math. Because it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'll make enough money to pay that off. Oh sure, it's, I'll make enough money. I've already got some student loan debt, but when I go and get, when I go back to school and I get a new job, I'm going to get a pay raise, and that pay raise is going to help me, cover not only my old student loan debt, my new student loan debt. Been there, done that. Did not work. Okay? It is not in their interest to help you pay off that debt. It is in their better interest, just like the credit card company, because really that's what student loans are. They're nothing more than credit card companies. The only difference is you can't go bankrupt. So remember that. The other thing before I end this, and I'm going to preach this over and over again, all right? So basically those were my two things. The conspiracy theory about why they didn't roll this out in a more responsible way, okay? Because I think it was pretty irresponsible. And then, of course, with the interest of the big banks keeping you in debt. Somebody has to pay that bank profit. Who's going to pay that profit? Who's going to deal with the loss? All right? If their balance sheets are all of a sudden cleared, they got no customers. Yeah, they've got future customers that will come, but all those past customers, they need the people that cannot pay off their student loan debt. The student loan lenders need the people who are constantly calling in, deferring it, because all of that raises the interest, and you pay interest on the interest and all of that. All right, before I close, lots of people are going to have a false sense. I don't mean to be a killjoy here, guys. I really don't mean to be a killjoy today, but it's just, this is just, I've had so much experience with this, and I want to help people navigate it and avoid the roadblocks. So I don't mean for this to be a total Debbie Downer, okay? So let me just say that. Lots of people are going to be breathing a sigh of relief because they're going to be on income based. Now, this is really for people who have never paid their student loans yet. That's those of you who possibly, you graduated in the last 3 years and you have never paid a student loan bill yet, okay? Because those of us who have already been on student loan payment are fully aware of it, okay? Many of you are going to feel a sense of relief. Oh, goodness, thank goodness I get to go on income-based. Without the income-based, my student loan, well, let's just use me for an example. I had $100,000, $110,000 student loan. Without the income base, my student loan bill would have been $900 a month. With the income base, it dropped it below $300. That was a great sense of relief. The only people, in my opinion, that should be on income-based are public service workers, teachers, firefighters, certain levels of nonprofit, government, city, state workers, okay? Nurses. Here's why. Unless you are in a public service job, if you are making income-based payments, you will never be able to pay that bill off. Hear me on this, okay? I had a $110,000 student bill. Did you really think, and I should have realized this, okay, should I? $300 a month payments, it's not even hitting the interest. If your payment doesn't even hit the interest, it's certainly not going to hit the principal being the amount that you initially borrowed. So what's going to happen the next month? So I made my, $275, $300, $325, okay, it kind of fluctuated, if I ever got bonuses at work and stuff. Because remember, it's income based. That was never enough money to hit the interest, much less the principal. So what happened to my bill? Over the 16 years that I had it, it went from $85,000 to $110,000 between 2.5, 3 years of forbearance and making the income-based payment. income-based payment, I could do a whole video on it, and I may even do some additional research on it because I already kind of have. But here's what people need to realize. Income-based payment gives you a false sense of security. It gives you a false sense of, oh, good. I have a $100,000 student loan. I don't have to make the $900 month payments. Phew, I'm down to $300. I can deal with that. And I only have to pay it for 20, 25 years, because again, this is for people who are not on public service. I only got to pay it for 20, 25 years, and then it's forgiven, thank God. Well, here's the problem. That bill is now higher. So let's take me. It's now at $110,000. It gets transferred over to the IRS. The IRS looks at the bill and goes, oh, gee, Ms. Horn, you received a $110,000 loan forgiveness. You owe taxes on that. So now they get to set me up with, I don't know, a $20,000, $25,000 tax bill. Now, yeah, I'd rather have a $20,000, $25,000, even $30,000 tax bill than a $110,000 student loan. But the problem is, if it took you 20, 25 years on minimum payment just to hit that 20, 25 year mark, if that took you 20, 25 years and you were never able to dip into the principal, how long do you think it's going to take you additionally to pay off the tax bill? So you're not really looking at a 20, 25 year student loan forgiveness. You may be looking at closer to a 30, 35 year bill. Think about this. You graduate, let's just round it off for easy numbers. Let's say you're done with college at 25. We're just going to round it off. You're done with college, maybe got a degree or two, all right? So, 35, 45, 55. Oh my goodness, you could be nearly 60 years old between your student loan debt and your IRS tax bill. Think I'm kidding? Look up articles on people. I was one of them. In their 50s and 60s in student loan debt for something that they did in their 20s and 30s. And if you're in your 40s and you're holding on to double-digit student loans, this is something you really, really need to look at, because you're getting set to retire with them if all you can pay is the income-based. Income-based is a false sense of making progress on your student loan. It's not. You're not making progress. You can't make progress when the income-based payment doesn't even cover the interest. And most income-based payments don't. So this is something that I think before people go on income-based payment, it should be explained to them. It was not explained to me. And I really learned it through the School of Hard Knocks. I feel kind of silly now. I feel like, Gary, why didn't you know that? But I did know. And many people out there with student loans, especially those that have never started paying them, think, oh, good, I can go on income-based payment. And then they're going to look at their bill 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20 years and go, why is this bill higher? I've never missed a payment. I've made all my payments. But when you're income-based payment, you pay interest on the interest. And it just keeps spiraling. All right, that's enough for today. Lots and lots to talk about, and I do hope you will consider subscribing. All right, here we go. I'm Carrie. This is Student Loan Chit Chat. Thank you so much for joining me. I do hope you will consider subscribing.